Humans Don't Make Good Familiars, Book 3, Chapter 25. Captain Gregorius's Point of View. The numinous braids hung loosely from the deck above, putting out just enough light not to strain the eyes. The ship's captain, one of his crewmen, and my lieutenant were in the ship captain's quarters. "Tell us what you saw on the sinking pirate ship," I said. "I'll be the one to order my men around, Captain Gregorius. This is my ship," he said, then turned to his crewman. "Tell us what you saw." "A lot of dead bodies, sir," the crewman said, obviously shaken. "It was bad."
"How so?"
Lieutenant Datahu asked. "The ship, it was falling apart, but so were they. It was like everyone had died months ago, and they'd just been floating on the water," he explained, shaking his head. "Their manner felt wrong, too, like it had spoiled somehow. All the bodies looked like they'd been pulled apart. Some had exploded with their guts splayed on what was left of the deck. It was awful, Captain." "What about the ones that got away?" the captain asked. "You said they looked sickly." "They looked like flying corpses. Their black feathers, cold beaks, not a single spark of life left in their besmears. Just wrong. Sick and wrong," the crewman said, his eyes tightly shut. "Thank you for this, Captain, and you as well, crewman. It was enlightening," I told them. "They're familiar. Does it got a name?" the captain asked. "Sentinel, though his master calls him Jake," I said. "Sentinel? Bit gaudy. Well, just do me a favour with Sentinel, Captain Gregorius. Make sure that its master does not lose control of it, at least not while it's on board my ship." I nodded in agreement, and Datahu and I took our leave, back to the main deck, far to the tail of the ship, where we could be alone and chat.
"He's getting stronger,"
Datahu said. "Indeed."
"That is good for us."
"Is it?" I asked.
"I hope so."
"A whole ship and its crew in one spell," I sighed. And while I may not worship the dragons any more, I did find myself praying inside my mind that they were right about him. Otherwise, there would be not much we could do.
"At least he is still ridiculously slow,"
Datu said, probably making a joke, or perhaps it was an impromptu tactical analysis. "He is, for now." Jake's point of view. Landfall for the ship never happened. Why would it be on a secret mission? Instead, we got a few miles away from land, just enough for us to fly there. The squad was flying low and close to the water, so close that I could taste the salt in the air, even through Chariot's windshield. Careful to not be seen, we waited until night, and the ship never came within visual distance of the mainland, the island of Taldre. The only light around the moon, then the faint glow of the runesand from Chariot, which I'd covered with the top for now. Captain Gregorius placed us in formation, and forbid anyone from using magic to prevent the risk of detection by patrols. Silently, each of us flew in the dark until a whisper from the captain ordered us to land in the water and wait for the patrol to pass by. The blue of their feathers blended with the water, but I had to send Chariot away and tread water until their captain gave the all clear, which was more difficult with one hand. If you've never seen a Nyama swim, you're missing out, because it is a very funny sight. At first, you might expect them to rest in the water like ducks and geese, but nope. They just float there like drowned parrots. At least their blue feathers blended in, except for Lieutenant Datahu, who had to submerge her white and grey body into the water, with only her beak sticking out, while the others used their wings to cover her. This far offshore, the waves were manageable, if a bit tall from a recent storm. Everyone was already wet from the splashing waves, but now that we were all dripping, I never saw the patrol. The captain said that it was a squad of 4 flying high. By the time we made it safely and undetected to the shore, everyone seemed tired and looked like wet-feathered rats. "I smell like the sea," Nine mumbled. "Flying with wet feathers must be hard," I said, pulling my shirt off and wringing it out, using my knees in the place of my left hand, then sending Chariot away.
"Indeed, and it makes us too loud,"
the lieutenant said.
"Time for a sandbath, squad."
Sandbath was a type of training I'd watched them do a few times at base. It was a method for quickly drying off, so that you could resume flying, or to hide yourself from familiars who tracked by scent. A few muffled moans echoed out, and they all fell flat to the ground, spread their wings and flapped them until their whole bodies were covered in sand. It was quite a sight. A minute later the captain straightened himself out. "All right, squad, summon your familiars and begin recon. 14, you're on watch. Familiar Sentinel, avoid using your flying chariot for this. The foliage here isn't thick enough to hide you, unlike the island of Sanku. It'll stick out too much."
"Captain, Without his rune creation, he is much slower. Perhaps too slow for recon duty. I suggest he stays in the dugout for now.
Lieutenant Datahu suggested. The captain thought for a moment. Agreed. Suma, you're on watch. 14, summon your familiar once your dugout is finished. Sentinel, you stay in the dugout until it is time to move. Yes, sir, I said. Immediately, we all got to work, digging out a pit underground, far away from the shoreline. And hidden in the forest, I made sure to make a sleeping area as wide as possible. The dugout trench on Sanku was miserable, and nearly gave me a panic attack getting in and out of it without being summoned. The excess dirt we piled up and used it and local foliage to blend the entrance into the area. Once I was done, all well hidden, Suma summoned me into the base, since the entrance was too small. Inside the dugout, I settled down alongside everyone else who'd summoned and sent their familiars out. 14 broke the silence first. So, Jake, or do you prefer Sentinel? Your master calls you both, so, Jake is fine. Sentinel is more of a legal name than anything. Legal name? What do you mean? Do you also have an illegal name? 14 asked, surprised. No. What's an illegal name?
It isn't an illegal name.
Suma suddenly shouted, sounding very defensive.
I would never. I also have been curious about this.
Lieutenant Datu said. Even the captain nodded in quiet agreement. It's the name my mum gave me, and Sentinel is the name Suma gave me when I became her familiar, I explained, a little confused. Wait, you were renamed, but you still use your former name rather than your current one? 14 asked, shocked. Laurie glanced my way, rolled his eyes, and went back to ignoring me. Yeah? I think Sentinel is a kind of government name here, and Jake is my name my friends call me. Aside from whatever government name is, Suma, how did you manage to rename Nine started to ask, but stumbled over the word Viking and glanced at the dirty look I was giving him. A powerful familiar such as Sentinel... Jake... Jake is fine, I said. How did you manage to rename Jake? Ryan corrected himself.
Well, he had no magic when we met. That made it easier.
Suma said. Captain Gagolus, Lieutenant Datu, Nine and Lorik didn't react much to that. They already knew, but 14 looked as close to a slapped mackerel as a Nyama could. No magic? As in, he could not use spells, or that he simply lacked training? 14 asked. None. My world doesn't have any, I said. But your spells are unbelievable, 14 asked, dumbfounded. Thank you, I said, not sure if it was the compliment. Then just renaming you was enough to give you such a powerful manner? Well, I didn't know how to answer him, without telling him that I also learned from watching the memories of a dragon and a real Viking. No, I just figured it out, really. My world has science that helped. All right, squad. Our familiars should be far enough away to begin the recon. Everyone connect with them and begin search pattern 1, Captain Gagolus said. I sighed in relief. Suma went outside to keep watch, and everyone else connected to their familiars. Sentinel, if you need to use magic, it should be fine as long as you stay underground. But keep the spells small and simple. You would remain undetectable that way. Only use it if you need to, though. Yes, sir, I said. Would a summoning spell be okay? He said it was, and connected to his own familiar. Everyone took various positions, was connecting. Lorik, Captain Gagolus, and Lieutenant Datu were sitting, with the only things denoting that anything was different about them being their glowing eyes, whereas 14 and 9 were laying like dead bodies sprawled out in the dirt. Summoning my bag, I pulled out my phone to listen to music and eat. Turning it on, what I expected to find was a fully charged phone, more food, and a new set of clothes. What was actually inside was nothing. Guess it's pretty late, or early. She probably hasn't had time to put everything back, I mumbled, and sent my bag back. Now, without anything to do, a nap seemed like the best idea. Lorik Isbala's point of view. Loyalty. My black serpent familiar slithered quickly through the grass, guided by my commands. At a moment, I'd opted to allow loyalty to retain control of its body and make its way on its own, while I simply watched everything through its eyes. Weaving through the foliage and brush, it eventually came upon a river and began to follow it in my order. However, it instinctively keeps a distance from the water's edge, as it cannot swim. While moving, the patterns on its skin changed to match the surroundings, hiding itself as much as possible. Suddenly, a shadow from above moved along the ground, sending panic through Loyalty's mind. I tried to hide in a patch of tall growing near the riverbank, but I forced it to turn and face the source of the shadow. 3 Niema were flying in a tight formation, and perhaps due to Loyalty's camouflaged hide, had seemingly not yet noticed him. If they had, then they would have immediately attacked him from above, noticing that he was a familiar, as Loyalty species are not native to this island at all. It would be like seeing a leviathan in a desert. Under my direct control now, I followed the 3, allowing Loyalty to control its camouflage and keep us hidden. Although my physical body was safely hidden underground in my squad's dugout, losing Loyalty would be inconvenient and perhaps even sad. They landed outside the village, then summoned their familiars, beetle cats, a mid-ranged, dangerous, and decently strong familiar. However, this sense of smell was the real threat now. Loyalty's eyes were not great, so I'd kept it close to see. But these beetle possess a powerful sense of smell. Pulling Loyalty back, I settled for a bit of blurriness rather than allowing it to be caught. The 3 rode their familiars into the village, and were met by only a single Niema, who summoned a crate to his side. One of the Niema left a familiar and inspected the contents of the crate. Meanwhile, the other 2 surrounded a single Niema, but made no move against him. Once the 3rd Niema was satisfied, it cast a spell on the crate and sent it away by unsummoning it. Afterwards, the 3 Niema left without incident, and the single Niema returned to its home. A tax collection, perhaps, I wondered. Once they'd gone, I used Loyalty to investigate further, sneaking into the village's fields. There I found that it was a farming village, growing seeds and raising low-grade familiars. None of the familiars were high quality. Just beasts of burden meant to be used in fieldwork or sold to those who could not perform summoning spells. None of them were considered combat familiars, or familiars meant to display some kind of status. While searching, I also found evidence of a battle outside the village. A Southern Union soldier's silver emblem worn on the bodies to indicate their rank, just as our soldiers wear pins, laying in a patch of burnt grass. The ground around the chain was greatly disturbed, like a nature magic spell had been cast. Nearby was a small and freshly planted death tree forest. From there I began to form a theory. 3 Niema, using low-grade familiars, sent on a menial task. These 3 could represent the overall state of the bulk of SU forces, on this island at least. They were well fed, and their master seemed well preened, which indicates that they have already crushed most of the resistance forces, and are now actively fighting. I sighed internally. This was not a good sign for the squad's mission, or my own. Unfortunately, the 3 were too far away for me to gauge their manner. Otherwise, I could form a more complete understanding of the SU's average force. Either way, it was safe to say that this island was well and truly captured, and under their command now. Releasing my control over Loyalty, I gave him new instructions to continue searching the area and resumed passively watching, allowing my mind to wander. I came to a single thought. Returning without him would be difficult to explain to his family, but under these conditions, it is unlikely he survived. Even as skilled with words as he has become since his assignment here, surviving this invasion would be nearly impossible. I thought of my friend, assigned to be a spy in these lands, while my house aided him in watching over his daughter during his absence. He and the child's mother stayed together, even after the young one's hatching, a rarity, but still. The spirits of the survivors have likely been broken by the Southern Union's violence, though we should not expect much help from them, if any. But maybe, hopefully, you managed to survive. I feared the worst, but no matter what, intended to discover Von Pack's fate. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.